Carolyn Dube here with another Playdate Spray Ink edition for you. Part of the reason why I started the Playdates was to start the conversations about supplies and what we like, why we like them, why we enjoy using them. But there's also something else. If you've seen my other videos this week, you know what my top 3 favorite spray inks are that are my go-tos right now. But I own lots of other spray inks. Because how did I find out if I really like them or not? I buy them and I play with them. So I've got plenty of spray inks around that are not in my top 3. Nothing against those companies or that spray ink, it's just a matter of how they speak to me. Someone else may find that these spray inks are absolutely in their top 3 and they love them and couldn't live without them. And that's the cool part about art and creativity, is there's no one right answer. There's no one perfect supply for everybody. Everybody has their own take on things. So I'm hoping you'll join in on the conversation with me about this, either over on my blog or over in the Google Plus in the Colorful Playground community. But today I'm going to use all the inks that I have that haven't made the top 3. And just because they aren't in the top 3 doesn't mean I don't use them. I just don't use them as much. So enough of my talking here. Let's get the video rolling and you can see how I play around with lots and lots of spray inks. Well, today I'm making an art journal background using all sorts of various inks. And each spray ink does a little something different. So I'm going to use them all together to create a background here in the art journal. So this is my Now is the Time stencil from over at Stencil Girl. And I've got a whole bunch of spray inks here, so I'm going to shake them up. And each one does a little something different. So I'm starting with this Making Memories one. I don't even know if they still manufacture these or not. It's very, very permanent. So very quickly, very completely permanent. This stuff will not run or smear. Makes it a pretty good choice if you want to do a first layer of stenciling because it's not going to bleed and run a whole lot. So I'm just kind of going at it. And why waste any ink? So I'm just going to flip that stencil over because what I'm doing here is just building a background. So I want to get some more color on here. So I'm going to bring in the Hero Arts Neon Fluorescent Yellow spray ink here. This stuff is very, very thick. It's almost like squirting out of paint, and it's a little more opaque than what I usually seem to gravitate towards. But it is very thick, so I can even spread it around with a palette knife. So great way to kind of spread and smear a little bit. Well, now I'm going to bring in one of my stencils called Rembrandt's Words, and I'm bringing in one of the Lindy's Gang Starburst, and you can see how very, very subtle it is. It's got just a little touch and hint of shimmer, and that's what I want to add, is just a little bit of it on there. And I've got all that ink and shimmer on there, so guess what? I'm just going to flip this over, and I'm going to get lots of shimmer in a couple of places. And as I'm doing it, my goal here is just to get color and pattern down because this is a background for an art journal page, and I hate to waste anything. So that's what's prompting the decisions that I'm making. Now I want to do something a little bit brighter here, something that's going to sort of pop. And the spray ink that I'm going to use for that is one that I find very, very super bright and vibrant, and that's Dylusions. But Dylusions runs very quickly. So if my paper is damp at all, and especially if it's wet, that Dylusions ink is going to run even more. So I'm kind of heating it up with a heat gun here just a little bit to buy myself a little dryness. It's mostly dry. I have to admit I didn't have the patience to let it get super dry. So I'm going to work with it being just a little damp. I'm going to be working with the Wall of Words stencil here, and it's got a lot of finely detailed areas in it. So what I want to do, if I want it to be really crisp, I want this stencil very, very flat. Now I could do things like tape it down and do all that, but that's just more work than I'm going to do. So I'm going to use a palette knife and just kind of hold it down in a spot, and that way I will be able to make sure that I've got pretty good contact. Notice that I'm only spraying part of it because I want it to sort of fade out and disappear. So I've got that down there, and then I'm going to add some up in another portion, and this is the part, sort of much brighter part of the background where it's going to pop against those yellows and pinks that I've got in that green underneath it. And because I'm working with Dylusions and because I'm working on something that wasn't completely dry, I am going to get a little bit of that bleeding, but I really like that variation, those imperfections in it. Now all this ink that I've got right here on the stencil, I am not going to waste that. So I'm just grabbing a scrap piece of paper and putting it on there. Since I didn't really have a spot in the journal where I wanted to put it, oh, I really like that. Ooh, that's going to be ripped up and used in something. Well, this has lots of layers already, but yet I want more layers. Yes, more. But I've got a lot going on, so if I do anything too bold or in your face, it's going to get kind of busy for a background. So what I'm going to do is go back and pull the same wall of words stencil. Because the words are different sizes from the top to the bottom, it gives me some options. I have smaller words that I've done in that Dilutions color. Well, now I'm going to go with some of the larger words, but this time using a color bloom spray. It's a much, much softer blue, and it'll fade more into the background, and it'll just add a little more layering, a little more depth to it. Now, as I've done this, of course, there's spray ink all over that stencil, and you know it, I do not want to waste that stuff. So I'm just going to flip it right over on the paper that I was already using. Things are going to mingle and work together, and guess what? I'm going to love how that looks together. You can see how the colors fade together a little bit, how they work. The Prima Color Blooms has a touch of shimmer to it, so that adds some of that in there too. And now I've got a background built up for me to do something more within my art journal. Or I could leave it this way because guess what? It's totally up to me. It's my art journal. Thanks for joining me for Playdates Spray Ink Edition. If you've enjoyed this video and like to see more of my videos, I'd love it if you subscribe to my YouTube channel. And of course, if you know people that would enjoy this, I'd love it if you shared this video with them. I've got links to everything over on my blog at acolorfuljourney.com. And of course, down below, if you're watching this on YouTube, there are links to all sorts of stuff down there. Thanks so much for being a part of this colorful journey.